If they asked me, I could write a book about the way you walk and whisper and look.
Joining us now on our Book Talk segment, great to welcome a woman who's written a book called The Me 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 Epidemic. It's a step-by-step guide to raising capable, grateful kids in an over-entitled world. And we're joined today by the best-selling author of a previous book that did very well, If I Have to Tell You One More Time. We're joined today by the co-founder of Positive Parenting Solutions Incorporated, Amy McCready, on the telephone. Amy, good to talk with you. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have a chance to talk with you for a couple of minutes. I know you've touched on a nice nerve there with the previous book, and this one I'm sure will do the same thing. I think we're hearing a lot about the whole entitlement kind of situation with parents and kids, so it's very timely, and I guess you probably got a lot of reaction to the previous book, right?
Yes, we certainly did. You know, I think a lot of parents with the previous book are looking for ways to get out of the nagging, reminding, and yelling business, and the book helped with that. And I think now, you know, over the years I've been hearing parents talk about this feeling of, you know, their kids are entitled, they want everything done for them, they're not willing to step up and work hard, and, you know, all sorts of things that parents talk about. So it felt like the right time to write this book about the entitlement epidemic.
Yeah, you call yourself a recovering yeller, right?
Yes.
Well, no,
I'm not yelling too much anymore.
No. I've found yelling doesn't help much. Maybe only if somebody's trying to, hurt you or kill you or something. But other than that, it kind of loses its effect after a while.
Exactly. It doesn't do much to change behavior. So
no.
There's certainly better ways.
Well, why do you think this has kind of happened in the last, I would say, maybe 10 years, maybe longer, but at least the last 5 or 10 years, you were hearing about people feel entitled, not just necessarily kids, but I guess kids obviously now when you're dealing with parenting. Where do you think this came from?
Well, entitlement isn't a real disease, but it does feel like it's hit epidemic proportions in the past couple of decades. And there are some societal factors that play in, but I think the biggest contributor is overparenting. Those of us, and I put myself in this category because I've made all the mistakes too, overindulging, overprotecting our kids, pampering them, doing things for them they're perfectly capable of doing for themselves, overpraising, jumping through hoops to make sure they're happy and they don't experience disappointment or difficulty or discomfort. All of these things we totally do in the name of love, but it's one of those things where too much of a good thing is really doing a disservice to our kids, and we've created a situation where our kids expect this kind of treatment, but from their parents as well as teachers and coaches and future spouses, unfortunately.
Yeah, you hear about all these teams or leagues kids play and everybody gets a trophy, nobody's a winner or nobody's a loser, right? Or everybody's a winner, nobody's a loser. That's not a good thing to have kids be taught, right? I mean, there's got to be some point in your life where you say, well, I didn't lose, I lost, so let's learn from that. It's okay to lose once in a while, right?
Absolutely, and I'm sure you heard the story of James Harrison from the Steelers,
right,
who took away the trophies from his kids. And I think as it tends to sports, we do need to encourage participation and teamwork and love of the game and overcoming adversity and all those wonderful lessons that come from youth sports. But we can do that with our words. We can do that with encouragement. We don't need trophies, because if kids get trophies just for showing up or putting on a uniform, they feel entitled to that. It becomes the expectation. It's not special, and kids get that, I think. So, I'd love to see us encourage the things that are most important. And of course, there are going to be kids that are very, very talented and have the skills, and we want to recognize that. But just because your team loses doesn't mean you're a loser. There's good that comes out of all of that.
You learn more from losing as a kid in whatever game you play than you do from winning, I think. But maybe that's just me. The name of the book is The Me 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 Epidemic, and you talk about parent overindulging, and I guess I've seen this just from watching different parents dealing with kids. It seems like one of the problems is the parents want to be their kid's friend, but parents aren't supposed to be your friend at that age. You when you're an adult maybe, but not when you're a kid, right?
Yes, and I mean, certainly I think it's important to have a friendly relationship with
Sure.
them. We don't want it to be adversarial, but no, we're not to be our kids' best friend. And I think a lot of this comes from the fact that life is so busy. We're so busy. We have 24/7 demands on us. It just feels like nobody has time. And so with the little bit of time that we do have with our kids, we want it to be easy. We want it to be fun. We don't want to have a big confrontation. And so very often it's just easier to give in. It's easier to buy that thing that they really, really, really want rather than facing the big long faces and the big tears. But over time, obviously, that's sending the wrong signals that these kids are entitled to whatever they want and whenever they want it.
Do you think part of the issue is, and maybe I'm off on this, but the fact now that most parents both have to work as opposed to the older days when most kids had their moms at home, dad would work, and mom would be a little tougher at home, but maybe that was better for the kids?
I think certainly that the pace of life in general plays into that. And yes, and if both parents are working, they don't have a lot of time to be home with their kids. But I see the same thing in families where one parent is home. Mm-hmm. And, even for stay-at-home parents, life is much busier than it was 2 generations ago or even 1 generation ago. So I think we tend to cave when we should say no. We're not holding firm to those limits. Again, because we don't want our kids to be disappointed. We love these people. We want them to be happy. We don't want them to, be bent out of shape, if you will. And we will jump through hoops to make sure that doesn't happen.
Let's talk a couple of things in the book that you outline very well. In one section, you have 13 signs you may have an entitlement problem in your home. Can you give an example or two what people can look for?
Yeah, a couple of things. So all kids have good days and bad days, but if you have kids who, rarely lift a finger to help out, can't or won't take no for an answer, they expect bribes or rewards to get through the grocery store for good behavior. They're always blaming somebody else for their circumstances. Maybe they feel like the rules don't apply. They always want more and more and more. They're not grateful. And that's a lot more than 1 or 2 that you ask for. But those are some of the signs or symptoms that you could have a Me 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 epidemic going on at your house.
I've always thought, and maybe again I'm a little too old-fashioned, but this whole time-out thing, that seemed to me like that didn't really teach kids much, other than having a few minutes to, be by themselves and maybe, still enjoy it. It's not really a punishment. Do you think that's part of the issue?
Well, I think timeout became very popular as an alternative to physical punishment.
I'm not saying that. But I'm not saying.
Yeah, right.
That punishment that
but
way.
You're right. To your point, it doesn't really teach them anything. So we send little Johnny to the timeout chair or his room or the corner for 5 minutes so he can think about his behavior. But how many kids are really thinking about their behavior and how they can make a better choice? Yeah. And for strong-willed kids, it actually escalates the power struggle because then it's a battle between the parent and the kid. The kid is bound and determined to get out of timeout, and then it's the parent's job to keep them in timeout. So you're absolutely right. It doesn't work to teach the child to do anything differently.
Yeah, I know my mom and dad as well. We acted up as kids. You take away something that we'd enjoyed for a little bit. That was more of a deterrent than anything else. Maybe that's the issue, rather than just having them sit in the corner. Take away something they enjoy doing, they'll learn from it. At least that's the way we were brought up.
Well, in Chapter 5 of the book, Chapter 5 is called Creating a Consequential Environment, and that's a really important component for unentitling our kids, that kids learn that there are limits and rules, and there are clearly defined consequences for not following the rules. So in the book, I explain to parents, a kind of a step-by-step formula for laying out consequences, following through, and do it in a way that both parent and the child can feel good about. Are kids going to like the consequence? No, of course not. But it feels fair. And that's one of the key things about a consequence. It must feel fair to the kids. They may not like it, but if it feels unfair, then it feels like, it puts the parent and the child on opposite teams, and then it just sort of turns into a big power struggle and very often revenge.
Yeah. Well, great advice in the book, and again, important to get these kids feeling not so entitled, because when they grow up to be adults, it's going to be a lot worse if they feel entitled, right?
Absolutely. These entitled entitled kids are difficult to live with at home, but they eventually become high-maintenance employees and very difficult spouses, which we don't want.
No, we see some of those walking around as adults, but I think your book's going to help a lot of people. It's called the Me 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 Epidemic. We've been talking with Amy McCready today, just touched on a few of the issues in it, but I think you're going to enjoy it out there. And Amy, give out your website, and people can get a hold of the book or get a hold of you if they like.
Great, yes. So, Doug, thank you. They can go to positiveparenting.solutions.com, and there's a lot of free training resources there. And, of course, the book they can get anywhere books are sold, online or independent bookstore, retail store, wherever.
Great. Amy, pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we can do it again when your next book comes out, but thanks for joining us today.
That sounds great, Doug. Thank you for the opportunity.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.